Once upon a time, Australian football had passion, it had colour, it had identity. From the red and black block in Western Sydney to the northern Terrace in Melbourne, football was tribal, it was emotional, it was alive. In 2014, over 42,000 fans turned up for the Sydney Derby. The noise was relentless. The flares lit up the night. For a moment, Australia felt like it had a real football culture. But then came the crackdown. In 2015, Football Federation Australia quietly blacklisted nearly 200 Wanderers fans, mostly active supporters, without warning, without due process. When the list leaked to the media, naming and shaming the fans, it sparked outrage. Entire supporter groups staged walkouts. Crowds dipped. Atmosphere vanished. Western Sydney went from the loudest stadium in the league to a graveyard. Average crowds have dipped from almost 15,000 to 9,000. Melbourne wasn't far behind. Victory's once feared North Terrace was worn down by relentless policing. Surveillance, sniffer dogs, bans for swearing or singing the wrong song. By 2017, the group dissolved. Later, when original-style Melbourne tried to revive that spark, they too were met with resistance, not from rival fans, but from their own club and overzealous security. At times, you'd have thought football fans were public enemies. Let's be clear, no one defends violence or criminal behaviour. But in Australian football, the response has never matched the reality. A handful of flares? Bring in the riot police. A provocative chant? Ban the whole bay. The 2022 Melbourne Derby pitch invasion was a low point. No one denies that. But instead of targeting the offenders, Football Australia dropped the hammer on all active supporters. Months-long bans, home-end restrictions, whole sections silenced, and with them, the soul of the game. With the atmosphere and spirit of the game suppressed, Melbourne Victory crowds too cratered, from an average of over 25,000 in 2015 to a miserable 8,000 by 2022, less than a third of its peak. But this isn't just an A-League problem, it's happening at grassroots level too. In Victoria's NPL, clubs like South Melbourne, Melbourne Knights and Preston Lions carry the legacy of decades. Ethnic pride, migrant resilience, and a football-first identity. And yet, these clubs have been sanctioned for the very things that make them special. And right now, Preston Lions and their supporters are the latest target. For months, the Preston Boys have been the loudest, most talked about supporters in the Victorian football scene. They bring energy, passion, atmosphere. They've drawn a new generation of young supporters back to the terrace. But instead of being celebrated, they're being vilified by Football Victoria and even elements within their own club. Their so-called crimes? A few provocative chants, some unauthorised banners, and claims so petty they barely belong in an incident report. As a result, Preston fans boycotted a recent match against Avondale, and with them gone, something was missing. The colour, the noise, the edge. What was left felt hollow. Just another state league fixture in front of a quiet crowd. And that's what the authorities don't understand. When you strip football of its supporter culture, the chanting, the tribalism, the flair of rebellion, you're not making it safer. You're making it irrelevant. You can't sanitize football and expect it to thrive. You can't turn every club into a family-friendly clone and expect passion to survive. Because football isn't about being polite. It's about being real, raw, alive. Preston shows us what the future of Australian football could look like. Local, loud, unapologetically grassroots. But instead of supporting it, the system is trying to neuter it. And if we keep going down this road, we'll be left with empty stands, soulless games, and a generation that tunes out completely. Football is not just a game. It's a culture, a movement, a voice, and that voice belongs to the fans. Football is nothing without supporters.
Were the ethnic cultures that built these clubs celebrated through food, drink and songs? Of course they were. Have a listen. Was there a bit of pyro during the celebrations? Yeah, maybe a little bit. But hey, you know what? Over 9,000 men, women and children turned out to watch a football match on a Friday night in a fun and safe environment, and it felt like real football. So I can't wait for the next one.